Hello, everybody. My name is Brennan, and today we'll be going over pair table tennis. Okay, here we go. Okay, first thing is table tennis is very much what is the same as able-bodied table tennis, or recreationally we call ping pong, is what most people refer to it as. First, we're going to go over some of the scoring and how the scoring system works. Um, at a Paralympic or Olympic style table tennis, games are played to a best of 5 sets. Okay. And or you can think of a set as like a game almost. So games must be are played to 11 points. All right. And to win a game, you must win by two. And that means, say, the score is 10-10, right? And the person who's serving the ball scores a point to make it 11-10. Typically, getting to 11 points wins you the match, but since it's a win by two, you have to win one more point over your opponent. So if they get to that 12th point and make it 12-10, then they're able to win that game. Okay. Now we're going to go into some of the rules of how points are scored, right? One of the first ways a point is scored is if the ball comes into contact with any person's body. So the person hits the ball over to their opponent, and the ball hits their person's table, then hits them, then it's a point for the person who returned it to them. If it hits you, then the other person gets a point. One of the main ways people get points added to them or they lose a point is if the ball hits the table twice. The ball is only able to hit each side of the table once before it being returned to the other side. So if I was a server and I turned it to my opponent and the ball hit twice on their side, I get the point. But vice versa, if they hit the ball to me and I let the ball hit twice on my side, then they get the point. Also, if they miss the hit in general, say I hit the ball over to return and it hits the table once and the other person misses and it hits the floor, then I also get the point because they failed to return it to my side. And once it hits the floor, it's dead. It's a dead ball. A let is what's called off a serve. So a let serve is when the player returns almost like a backspin type of serve to their opponent, and it hits that side of the table and it rolls back towards the net in the middle of the table, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but on my screen, I'm circling the net. Um, this is a point towards the person who didn't serve, because so you're serving that serve and putting that backspin, which makes it in returnable to your opponent. So they don't allow that in the game of pair table tennis. And one of the most frustrating but valid shots in the game is when you return the ball to the opposite side of the table, it actually hits the net and then dribbles on the other side. That is a valid shot off a non-serve. Okay. If it's on a serve, then it's a reserve. But if it's on just a regular shot, then it does count. And once it hits the table twice, the other team gets the ball. As much of us have played table tennis or ping pong, I'm sure you've experienced that where you're just like, there's nothing you can do because the ball lands twice and you're not able to return it. It's very annoying, but it's a great strategy if you're able to perfect it. All right, moving on to some of the equipment that we use. There's really main three or four main things in the game of table tennis. And the first one we're going to look at is the ball. It's around 44 millimeters in diameter and it weighs about 2.5 grams. Typically, you'll see either the ball be white or orange, and it's that plastic material that we all know. I'm sure we're all familiar with a ping pong ball or a table tennis ball looks like. I'm sure we used it in the past. The next one is this one in the middle is called a paddle, or at the higher level they call it a bat. These are typically made of wood, like the handle's made of wood and like the framing, and then they cover it in this spongy and rubber material, which allows the player to get all those funky spins on the ball, which I'm sure some of us experience of those better players are able to hit and get that curve, so you're not able to hit it. But at this level, these players are so good, they're able to return those spins and those curves. It's actually kind of wild to watch. Um, Next we have the table, and that's 2.74 meters long and about 1.5 meters wide. And at the Paralympics, especially in the wheelchair division, the legs have to be 40 centimeters underneath the table so that the wheelchairs have space to move around and not hit the legs of the table. So that's why the legs are in the middle of the table, not on the corners like some of our recreational ones that we may have at home or we see at like a bar or something like that. Next we have the net, which is the thing that divides the two sides of the table. And this is normally about 15.25 centimeters tall, and it's made out of this nylon material that's pretty strong stuff, so that stuff's not gonna break when that ball hits it. All right, let's move on. Next, we're moving on to classification. All right, there's a lot of classifications when it comes to para table tennis. First, we're going to look at the classes of 1 through 5. All right, this is considered, if you're a class between 1 and 5, you are what's called the sitting class. Okay, these are people that are in wheelchairs. Okay, and those who are in class 1 are going to be their most severe impairment, where they have the most limited movement. And then those in 5 have the most movement in their wheelchair. Next, we're going to move on to class section of 6 to 10. This is our standing class. That again, same thing similar to the 1 5. That class 6 is going to be the lowest movement or like the most intense like impairment to the body. And then that class 10 is almost like they have full range of the body, maybe like missing like one limb or something like that. And then class 11, if they sometimes they include the Olympics, sometimes they don't. That class 11 is for those with intellectual disabilities. They have their own class, um, which is really cool. All right, moving on. Okay, and the athlete that I chose to do is, his name is Ian Seidenfeld. I hope I pronounced that right. He is a United States table tennis player, and he actually won gold in the last Olympics in his class, which he was class 6. Um, he is someone who has achondroplasia dwarfism. That's a very long name, very long diagnosis name, and I hope I did not botch that. But that basically how's different than achondroplasia, which is the most common form, is that he has like a normal sized head and body, but it's just like his legs and his limbs are mainly the only thing that are unproportionate to the rest of his body. But that does qualify him in the class 6 classification spot. And he's so good and he's still young enough. He is like almost our age. He's like 22, 23. He already qualified for the Paris Games coming up this summer, which is super cool. And I actually hope I am able to watch it now. All right, now we'll move on to my reflection. Why table tennis? Well, I played table tennis for fun all the time with my cousins and my friends when we're back at home and like during the summer break. And I always wanted to like know more about the higher end competitions and how those work. So that's why I kind of chose this. What did I learn? One is I learned how you actually qualify for the Paralympics in table tennis. It's very unlike any other sport where you don't qualify through your country, you qualify through the whole world almost. So each like continent has their own qualifying tournament that they have, and that's like the main way people are qualified. So like they take like the top like 2 or 3 based on what continent you are into the Olympics. And then they move on to the next kind of thing, which is then they do off your world ranking, which you can find at the IPTTC. They have a full ranking of all the people in the world, and they take the best 2 or 3 then from each. They take not from each continent, from the whole world. It's a world ranking. It's not by continent, but they take the next 4 or 5 of the next highest rated players that didn't win their continent's tournament that they played in. And then if you still haven't qualified after that, you have one really last try at the world qualifier. So there's a whole world tournament which people can go and play in a tournament to get in. And based on the classification, they accept a certain amount. Some may accept 3, may accept 4. And that's for all the different levels too. It's just all based on classification, how many they accept for your classification. And then the last one is like there's this special invitation that the IPTC and the Olympics can like send to somebody, and that's like if someone like due to like just like super extreme circumstances where like they weren't able to compete based on like some extreme way that they weren't able to go and compete at these qualifiers, but they have a high rank and they know they're a high quality player, they'll get that invitation. But they only do that in extreme circumstances. So they won't give like if a high player like loses in these world qualifiers, they're not going to give them the invitation. It's only if like they're not able to actually show up and compete will they have a chance to get this special invitation. The classification system is another thing that I learned. There's a wide range of classifications in table tennis, as we went over. There's 11 different classes, and they all have something sim. There's like all like small tweaks that qualify for each one, and it's really cool to see like what qualifies you for which one. Just going back to my athlete who has dwarfism, I would have thought like he would be in a high classification in the standing class that I talked about, but no, he qualified for level six for the classification for the six level six classification, which I thought was super interesting. And then how am I going to implement it? It's a lifelong sport, and it's something that you can teach my students in the future, or um, any adapted a person in any adapted program the chance to play, as it's a great way to get moving. Also a great way to like learn your hand-eye coordination as you want to hit you're seeing that ball coming and you're trying to hit it out of the air as much as possible. Um, it's a great sport to keep people active throughout a lifetime. And that and here's my references, and that is my presentation. I want to thank you, and I will see everybody next weekend. Thank you so much. Bye.